Your energy plan, at least according to your campaign website, makes no mention of nuclear power, other than you've spoken and said this needs to be part of our energy plan. So just speaking specifically to nuclear power, can you, as president, would you encourage the construction of future and more nuclear power plants?
No, that's why I've not included it in my plan. I have said that nuclear power to be a viable, safe option for America's future energy needs faces some very difficult problems, which I don't yet see being addressed adequately. There's the waste problem, which we know is still not resolved, and I think we have to make some tough decisions to do that. Secondly, there's the cost problem. The cost problem is extraordinary, and it seems difficult to imagine any utility actually going into building and siting a plan knowing how expensive it's going to be without huge federal subsidies, which we've always done in the past. We've always subsidized nuclear power. But I think we can use those tax dollars better on, renewables and other approaches. And thirdly, there are continuing safety issues regarding waste, but also safety issues regarding operation. In my plan, I've said that I want to have a strategic energy fund that would be funded primarily by taking the tax subsidies away from the oil companies, using some of the auction proceeds from the cap and trade permit auction. And I do think we should do some legitimate, independent research into new generation nuclear power. Other countries are looking to see whether they can get the size of the plants down, whether new technology would make them safer, what to do with the waste. I'm open to that, but I don't include nuclear power as part of my energy policy, which I think is an appropriate approach given the problems we have with it.
So if we don't build new plants, we have to assume that the existing facilities are going to seek licensing extensions. They're going to want to operate for a longer period of time. We have a nuclear power plant.
Yankee,
head out the door and turn left. It's about, head a little southwest, about 20 minutes away. And that particular plant is now waiting to learn if it will have an extra 20 years in which to operate. And the NRC seems to have I don't know if policy is the right word, but a habit of routinely approving these licensing extensions. Are you confident that the NRC is going to be doing all it can to keep the people who live near the nuclear power plant safe, and that these license extension policies will be scrutinized carefully?
No. In fact, we have a very difficult issue regarding relicensing and safety and performance with a plant just 30 minutes from where I live in New York. It's Indian Point. We've had a continuing, ongoing argument with both the plant owner and operator and the NRC. I have been pushing the NRC to come up with different rules to judge relicensing applications. I've taken them on everything from their safety inspections to their emergency evacuation plans, and it's been a very significant issue for me for personal reasons because we live close to it, but also following 9/11 it was a very dangerous target in the view of a lot of people. I mean, it's just up the Hudson from New York City. We had Air Force fighters flying a cap over the plant. We had Coast Guard cutters in the Hudson River. So I take this very seriously. Now, part of the problem that I see is that the NRC has historically been somewhat biased toward nuclear power. We all know that.
Sure.
But that's understandable. They come from the nuclear physics and nuclear power industry, and they go into the NRC. But under the Bush administration, they haven't really been very vigorous in trying to get answers and hold plant owners to account. So it's not only the relicensing, it's what now is starting to happen with the with the encouragement of the Bush administration of more potential licenses. I don't think they are staffed well enough. I don't think they have the independence and the expertise that is needed. And that's an area that I'm going to pay a lot of attention to because I worry about it.
Didn't you get the NRC to conduct an independent safety examination at Indian Point?
Not to the extent I wanted it. We wanted a top to bottom independent assessment.
Right.
We got a couple of notches below that in response to our pressure. And you know, I don't fault the NRC or the operators and owners for being protective of their position. I fault the NRC and the government for not holding them to a higher standard. You know, that's what I don't.
Well, there's
I don't
been a
approve of.
similar fight going on at Yankee.
For years.
It's older
Yeah.
than Indian Point, and it's
It is.
and it's up for renewal.
What is the population, Guy, in the 50-mile radius of Yankee?
Oh, I don't know, 70,000, something like that.
Yeah,
More than
probably
that.
a little bit more.
It's Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire. All three states are in the 10-mile zone, as if the 10-mile zone would protect you. But I mean, it's that close to the edge of all three states.
Yeah, I know.
And they've been fighting, and they can't get any kind of a safety assessment. And the plant's falling apart. I mean, they had a cooling tower collapse here a couple of weeks ago, spewing water all over the place. I was going to ask you to make some news and promise that we'd get a safety assessment if you got a.
Well, you will under my NRC. I mean, you know, the NRC has only done one totally thorough, independent safety assessment that I'm aware of. And I think there are a number of these aging plants that cry out for such a safety assessment. I'll tell you, I mean, this is a sad story. I've been in a battle with them over the emergency evacuation plans. The problems we've had, not quite as dramatic as the collapse of a cooling tower, but we've had leakage. We've had, you know, strontium-90 and other chemicals getting into the groundwater. We've had problems with some of the security staff being ill-prepared and not really, in my opinion, equipped to do the work that was there. We've had all kinds of problems. So we said we want a better emergency evacuation plan, and the plant dragged its feet, wouldn't do it. And they didn't have sirens or anything in place. So I tried to get them to agree to put in sirens. They would not on their own agree to put in sirens. So I passed a law that said they had to have sirens. We still don't have workable sirens because the plant has tried a couple of different approaches and has not been successful. The NRC has not been as hard on them as I think they should be. They've, you know, fined them a little, pushed them a little, but so I mean, we're in this constant give and take, and it's local people, local elected officials, local, you know, citizens groups who keep pushing the safety envelope when it should be the NRC. The NRC is there to protect the public and to make sure that operators who are running nuclear plants do so to the highest possible standards. So I think the standards have to be changed in law. I think we've got to have a better NRC staff and leadership, and I'm going to do that when I'm president, because I've lived with this now for, you know, 6.5 years.
I don't want to bog this interview down with this
No, it's
particular
important,
issue,
though.
but it's close to us. So I have just one other quick follow-up, and you can offer a short answer. And that has to do with the waste. Do you have any thoughts about what we should do with this waste? Should it be stored at a central place such as Yucca Mountain, or if not, where do we put this stuff?
Well, I've been against Yucca Mountain for several years because I really believe that the scientific process to pick the best site was short-circuited for crass political purposes back in the 80s. And so we ended up with Yucca Mountain, which is on an earthquake fault, which has all kinds of design problems. And we're now years into this, have spent, I don't know how many billions, and I don't think we're that much closer to having a central repository that actually works. We had a hearing in the Senate on this a week or two ago, and I said that we needed to start over. We now know more than we did when we started this process, and it's a very dangerous, difficult undertaking. The transportation of all this waste, I mean, we know it happens, but it happens kind of in the dead of night. People aren't aware of it. If we say, okay, we're now going to move all the waste from Yankee, Indian Point to Nevada, that's going to be such a difficult undertaking. Does not make sense to me.